Enjoy your meeting. Just a reminder, today's meeting is being recorded. Meeting room locked.
This presentation is a review of primary research conducted by the Christian Investment Forum to broadly compare the performance of mutual funds from CIF member firms with the overall mutual fund industry. This research did not seek to make individual fund comparisons or to rate individual funds or fund managers. Rather, it was to follow up on third-party research that has been done on the broader SRI ESG investing universe. That research analyzed what, if any, impact ESG investing criteria have on financial performance. We wanted to see if the same outcomes were likely in analyzing the faith-based or biblically responsible investing community of the Christian Investment Forum. A report on the CIF analysis, which includes a review of the third-party research, was also created, and it's available on the CIF website or for downloading as a PDF. That report provides more details on the specific results of the research. Now, there were three main purposes for CIF to pursue this research. First was to engage the financial community in discussions about the positive aspects of faith-based investing. Far too often, the perception of BRI is negative, that BRI is only about what we're against. Christians often get this same label. So CIF and its members believe that BRI is and should be as much about how investing in alignment with faith can support flourishing of business. Second was to highlight the professional approach of CIF member firms in their portfolio management and investment decision-making. CIF and its members seek to give God our very best, and that means being the very best portfolio managers, certified financial analysts, and service providers. And third was to dispel the concerns that faith-based investing causes underperformance. The two most frequently cited reasons why advisors don't utilize more BRI funds are one, the assumption there are too few fund options available to them across sectors, and two, the false belief that underperformance is to be expected when investing in BRI funds. Our research is certainly not intended to suggest in any way that advisors should expect future outperformance simply by using BRI funds. But by the same token, the research clearly shows there is no causal relationship between underperformance and BRI. So let's explain how the research was conducted. There were two arms to the study. First was to compare broad equity and bond composites of CIF funds versus industry averages across the same broad categories. For this arm, we looked at a 5-year historical performance with returns calculated on a total return basis. The second arm of the research was to dig more deeply into specific categories. We felt this would be more applicable and informative analysis than the broad categories of equity and bond. Now, to avoid overweighting bias from any single fund, only those categories that had 4 or more funds from CIF members were analyzed for this second arm of the study. So for a more detailed explanation of the methodology and process for obtaining data, Morningstar data was downloaded for each fund using default share classes, which are primarily load-waived A shares or comparable NTF share classes. Asset allocation category funds were not included, given the sometimes significant differences in asset allocation between funds within these categories. So now, with an understanding of the basics of the research protocol, let's begin with a brief highlight or summary of the results. And in summary, the results of the research corroborated the prior research done by the other firms, the third-party firms, and showed that investing in BRI through CIF member firms should not be considered a trade-off to performance. A composite of CIF funds compared very similarly to the industry average returns. And in fact, many of the categories analyzed showed the CIF funds composites outperforming the averages, including more than just the ones that we'll be looking at today. This comes with the added benefits and comfort knowing that these funds work diligently to bring their Christian faith and values into the broader investment decision-making process, being faithful stewards of God's gifts. This conclusion is similar to that found by several prior research studies, which strongly suggested that values-based screening, values-based investing, whether for social, ethical, or faith-based reasons, is more likely to have a positive relationship to performance than a negative one, or at worst, a neutral effect. Now, each of the 4 studies are cited here, and they're highlighted in the CIF white paper with a little bit more summary. But you can see that these are some very credible, highly reputable companies, consultants in the financial industry. So now that we've looked at that summary, let's look at the data from the first arm of the study, the broad bond and equity categories. In the bond sector, over the 5-year period ending August 31st, 2015, the CIF fund composite slightly underperformed the industry average. These returns are unweighted and include 12 funds from CIF member firms. Now, in the equity sector, over the same 5-year period, ending August 2014, the CIF fund composite slightly outperformed the industry average by 77 basis points. Now, there were 35 funds used to develop the composite for the equity sector. And again, these are unweighted average returns. So now, taking these together, both the bond and the equity, one slightly above, one slightly below, they show a very neutral effect of faith-based investing processes in comparison to the overall industry averages. But as we said earlier, it's probably more practical and applicable to everyone to look more critically at individual categories. And so shifting to the second arm of the study, we analyzed these specific categories, and data was collected from Morningstar categories in which there were at least 4 CIF funds available. This was to limit the extent that a single fund could significantly impact the results. For the same reason, the average was calculated only when there were at least 3 of these funds in existence. So for this arm, we are looking at historical performance data that's actually longer than the 5-year period used for the bond and equity categories, the shortest being 6 years in the mid-cap growth category. And we hope that that provides a longer time horizon to review and analyze the data. And now, as you can see from the study in the table, the CIF funds composite average return outperformed the category average return for all 3 of the categories. Now, here's that same data, but in graphical form. And you can see that in the mid-cap growth, which is at top, there was 11.9% average return versus a 9.2% average return for the industry average. That's followed by the large blend in the middle, and then the intermediate term bond composite category. So now let's take a look at each of these individually, these categories, in chart formats, and get into them a little bit more specifically. Now, in the mid-cap growth category, there are 4 funds from CIF members that made up the composite. They are the Timothy Plan Large Mid-Cap Growth Fund, the Timothy Plan Aggressive Growth Fund, the Ave Maria Growth Fund, and the Eventide Gilead Fund. The time period analyzed begins in August 2008 with the launch of the Gilead Fund. From August 2008 through August 2014, a hypothetical $10,000 investment in the CIF funds composite would have grown to $19,807, or an 11.9% annualized return, compared to $17,088, or a 9.2% annualized return with the industry average. The return outperformance for the CIF funds over the average is 268 basis points on an annual basis. So now let's take a look at the U.S. large blend category. And there are 5 CIF funds that make up the composite in this category. The Ave Maria Rising Dividend Fund, the Epiphany Faith and Family Values Fund, Guidestone Fund's Equity Index Fund, Steward Large Cap Enhanced Index Fund, and the Timothy Plan Large Mid-Cap Value Fund. The analysis period began in June 2005 with the launch of the Ave Maria Rising Dividend Fund. During this time period, a hypothetical $10,000 investment in a composite of the CIF funds would have grown to $21,943, or an 8.9% annualized return, while the industry average would have grown to $18,957, or a 7.2% return. On an annual basis, the outperformance of the CIF funds average was 171 basis points. And now let's finally look at the intermediate term bond category, so 2 equity categories and 1 bond category here. And there were 5 CIF funds in this category. that make up the composite. They are the Ave Maria Bond Fund, the Epiphany Strategic Income Fund, Guidestone Fund's Medium Duration Bond Fund, the Praxis Intermediate Income Fund, and the Timothy Plan Fixed Income Fund. The time period reviewed began in June 2003 when the Ave Maria Bond Fund was launched. From June 2003 until August 2014, a hypothetical $10,000 investment in the CIF funds would have grown to $16,047 with an annualized return of 4.3%, compared to $15,657 or a 4% annualized return for the industry average, an annual return outperformance of 30 basis points. So now in each of these categories, and even in the broader marketplace, again, a key point here is not to be identifying individual funds or suggesting that an individual fund is the outperformer. Rather, this entire research study was designed to look at the broad BRI sector and saying that you can get similar performance as well as including the BRI screening. And as you may recall, there were three purposes for this presentation. First was to highlight the positive aspects of faith-based investing. The Christian Investment Forum and the portfolio managers who run the funds we've discussed believe in the ability of faith-based investing to assist and support businesses that can thrive and flourish as great examples of Christian values in the marketplace. And second, while this study did not focus on portfolio design or investment decision-making, it should be clear that the ability of funds to perform at the highest levels in the industry, receiving Lipper, Wall Street Journal, and Morningstar awards, among others, requires being consistently great at what they do. Finally, this report reinforces and adds to the strong list of prior research that has shown a generally positive relationship between values-based investing and performance. When managers consider themselves as owners of the companies in which they invest in and actively make investment decisions in alignment with their values, they, their advisor clients, and their investor clients can together have a fundamental impact on our Christian faith, our culture, and on the perceptions of the business marketplace. We hope this information has been valuable to you. The Christian Investment Forum was formed to develop and provide this type of research to advisors and their clients with the goal of increasing the understanding and use of biblically responsible investing. Please visit our website for more information about each of our member firms, the funds they provide, and about BRI. And please sign up for our mailing list if you'd like to continue to be made aware of our research, news, and upcoming events. If you have questions or comments or would like to see more of this type of research and training, please send your requests to info@christianinvestmentforum.org. That's info@christianinvestmentforum.org. Thank you, and have a blessed day.